Coming up on today's edition of Locked On Eagles, it's our first mock draft Monday in the month of May. The NFL draft is only a few weeks away, so we're going to do a 7-round predictive Philadelphia Eagles mock draft coming up next.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Louis DiBiase. Welcome into this Monday edition of the show. It's brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Can't believe it. We are already in the month of April. The 2025 NFL Draft is just a few weeks away, 17 days, as a matter of fact. We are under the 3-week mark. The Philadelphia Eagles currently are going to be on the clock at the 32nd overall pick. I doubt that stays that way in 17 days, whether there's a trade up before the draft or on draft day. They're going to trade up. They're going to trade down. Something with a move up or down the board is going to happen from Howie Roseman, in my prediction. That's what I'm going with. And on today's edition of the show, it's Mock Draft Monday. We're going to do another 7-round mock draft. I thought with it being the first mock of April, let's try to get as predictive as possible. Less than 3 weeks to go. Let's see where we think Howie Roseman's head is at. Not what I would do, not what I think the listeners would do, not based on, some mock drafts I'll do it based on need. Sometimes it's the best player available approach. Sometimes just in a different idea of double dipping at a certain school, double dipping at a certain position early on, like trading up, trading down, just trying different scenarios, because that's what I think is so important about mock drafts, not just for the media and fans, but teams do this as well to prepare for an unpredictable night that is the first round of the NFL draft. So today, we're going to do a predictive mock. I'm going to go through a 7-round mock and do exactly what I think Howie Roseman will do 17 days from today. Let's start with round 1, the 32nd overall pick. As I said, I do think it is extremely likely. I'll say, a 90% chance that maybe I'll go 85% chance that Howie Roseman moves up or down. Maybe there's a scenario where a guy you just had no expectations of falling might fall in your lap, like a Malachi Starks or a Nick Emenwari at safety, or a Shamar Stewart or a James Pierce with the defensive line. A Walter Nolen could fall in your lap at 32, or one of the top offensive line prospects. Just someone that you thought would be a top 15 pick and ends up being available at 32, like Quinyon Mitchell last year, who I think we all thought would be the first or second cornerback off the board. And even if Terry and Arnold went ahead of him, Quinyon was still going to be a top 15 pick. There was no way he falls to the Eagles, maybe enough where they can trade up, but the fact that they didn't have to move was unbelievable. So there is that one scenario where I'll say it's not a given that Howie's going to trade up or down, but I think it's very likely he's going to. So in this first round, that's exactly what I did. Again, we're getting predictive here, what I think Howie Roseman would do, not what I would do. Although this move, I'm all for. So I saw a certain player that I did mention on the defensive line slip outside the top 20. He is a very good pass rushing specialist on the inside. I could see him going as high as the 10th, 11th overall pick. I could see him being a top 15 pick, but there are some concerns about the fact that he was at 6 different schools when you combine his high school and college experience in 7 years. It is a loaded class of pass rushers on the inside and the outside, so there is a chance he slips, and he did fall to the 24th overall pick. And remember last Friday I said on the show, that's the team to circle for a potential trade up. If Philadelphia wants to get up the board, and it's not a crazy trade, getting up into the top 15, he wants to get to, the 24th pick. Minnesota is a team to target. They only have 4 selections in this draft. If they want to collect extra picks to build around J.J. McCarthy, this could be a deal that's worthwhile. And again, it's going to be hard to convince a team that's in the top 20 to move down 10 to 15 spots down the board. Telling Minnesota to move down 8 spots, that's, I don't think, very unlikely. I think that you could get that done. So we offered Minnesota a 3rd-round pick and a 4th-round selection. We got the deal done. We moved up to that 24th overall selection from 32 and selected Ole Miss defensive tackle Walter Nolen. I think, honestly, when you talk about all the prospects that are linked to the Eagles, like based on positions of need, what kind of prospects they normally like, what schools they normally take from, there's a lot of guys that make sense. Like you could make the argument Shamar Stewart's an Eagle, that kind of prospect. Same with Malachi Starks, James Pierce, Darius Alexander, even from Toledo, I think is an Eagle kind of prospect. I think Walter Nolen makes the most sense out of anybody in this draft for this team. Like even Donovan Ezereku makes a lot of sense, but Walter Nolen, when you combine the position he plays, the style of which he plays that position, the school he went to, the age, the athleticism, I think that like the need, the hole they have to fill with Milton Williams off the board, or not off the board, going to New England, off the team, I think Walter Nolen makes the most sense of pretty much any prospect in this draft on day one. So we sent the 96th overall pick in the third round. We sent a 7th rounder and then a 4th rounder next year. So we gave Minnesota 2 picks this year, a 3rd and a 7th. We gave them a 4th rounder next year to move up 8 spots to get Walter Nolen. And I think this team can afford it. They can afford to not have as many picks this year with the complete roster they have, the picks the next 2 years they have coming. They have an additional 3rd rounder next year from the Jets because of the Hassan Reddick trade. They're going to get comp picks back from the free agent losses this year. So they're going to have a ton of draft ammunition the next 2 years. So if they see a guy, if they want to value quality over quantity in this draft and go get one of these premier pass rushing prospects, whether it's on the inside or the outside, and I would prefer the inside, Walter Nolen replacing Milton Williams. Walter Nolen and Moro Ijoma is your inside track next to Jalen Carter, along with Jordan Davis. Like, I think they can make that move. I'm okay trading away a 3rd and a 7th this year and maybe only having like 5 to 6 picks in this draft, kind of like you did in 2018 after that Super Bowl win. Like, I think you can prioritize quality over quantity. If teams prefer other pass rushers, if they're concerned about Walter Nolen. And again, Philadelphia has to do their own research if they believe in him off the field. But if they do, like, I think this is the perfect player to replace Milton Williams. Like, he is, I think, a one-on-one specialist next to Jalen Carter. He is so explosive off the line of scrimmage. That first step, that violence with his hands, the athleticism he has, the pursuit, the motor, I think he can be the perfect replacement. 10.5 sacks from Walter Nolen the last two years at Ole Miss. Had 6.5 last year on the inside. I think pass rushing defensive tackles is one of the top needs for the Eagles heading into this draft. And like I said, I think Walter Nolen might be the best player, the best niche role of a pass rushing defensive tackle in this class. Maybe even over, like Mason Graham's a damn good player. Like he's going to be a top 10 pick. But I think Walter Nolen might have the highest ceiling of anyone on the inside as a pass rusher. And I think the Senior Bowl showed that. Like, just go back and I'm sure there's YouTube videos out there where people clipped his one-on-ones. Like, he's a nightmare. I remember seeing a PFF tweet that weekend in Mobile where they're like, don't let Philadelphia get their hands on Walter Nolen. Like, even other platforms know this is a Philadelphia Eagle kind of prospect where some other teams might not want to take the risk on him. He falls in a deep class, and boom, you pair him with Jalen Carter, with Jalix Hunt, with Nolan Smith, with Moro Ijoma, and boom, that's another big piece, a big young piece of your defensive line. So I think that's the move to make. Minnesota is the team I would circle, trade up from 32 to 24, gave him a 3rd round pick and a 7th this year, a 4th rounder next year. Go get, I know it's a deep class, but sometimes you can get caught in a deep class of waiting too long, and then you lose that top tier. Like the top, best of the best in a really good class, that's a damn good prospect. And I think I go back to 2019 when everybody said those pass rushers in that class, it was so deep. There's so many options to choose from. But Philadelphia waited too long, and they ended up settling for a Sharif Miller in the 4th round. And I think Howie Roseman even talked about kind of regretting that, waiting too long, assuming there would be options. But I like to go for the top tier prospects in a loaded class, because what does that say about that player? Like, they're the best of the best. This isn't talking yourself into a quarterback in a weak class. Like, Walter Nolen is, to me, the best pass rusher of a very deep class of players at his position. I think you could say that about a lot of edge rushers as well. So why is this likely? Why is this in the predictive mock? Howie Roseman has only stayed at his pick he originally had based on standings, or didn't make any sort of day one trade. He's only done that twice since 2016. 2020, and 2024. So it's very likely because he's going to move up or down the board. And it's also likely that he takes a defensive lineman because Howie Roseman has taken a defensive lineman in the first round 6 times since 2010. That's more than any other position on day one since Howie Roseman took over as the Philadelphia Eagles general manager over 15 years ago. So that's why it's the first pick of the predictive mock. Walter Nolen's the exact kind of prospect they're looking for based on need, based on what they value, based on the style of player he is and the position that he plays. It's likely because they always trade up or trade down. And I think it could be likely because Minnesota, I think they could be one of the most likely teams willing to talk to Philadelphia about a potential move down the board to that 32nd overall pick. So we're going with Walter Nolen with our first pick in today's mock. First round, 24th overall. We'll continue our predictive mock draft coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy, all so you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. All right, we continue on with Mock Draft Monday right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. April 7th, our first 7-round mock of the month that the NFL draft takes place. 17 days away. The Eagles will be eventually on the clock, I think at 32nd overall. Actually, I don't think that, but right now, that's where they currently stand. But in this predictive mock that we're doing today, going into the brain of Howie Roseman, trying to do this in the way that we think he would do it, the first pick we went with, we traded up from 32 to 24 with Minnesota, traded away that third-round pick we have this year, and one of our picks on day 3, our 7th rounder, to move up to get Ole Miss defensive tackle Walter Nolen. But I'm not done making trades because Howie Roseman likes to make trades on day 1. He likes to make even more trades on day 2 and day 3. So we're going to pick at the 64th overall selection in the second round, but I'm thinking we moved up on day 1. We were aggressive. We gave away a day 2 pick, a third rounder, which can be very valuable. The Eagles have had some big-time contributions from third-round picks lately. I mean, just look at Nakobe Dean and Jalix Hunt. Like, they're getting some big-time play out of these guys. I think eventually this year, Tyler Steen and Sidney Brown, those were third-round picks as well. We got rid of one of those picks, though. We got rid of that third rounder, gave away a 7th, and we gave away a 4th-round pick next year in 2026. So I think now I want to trade down from 64. I think that's what Howie would do. Look to recoup some picks. Maybe we can get another third rounder or a 4th, collect some more day 2 and day 3 ammunition. That's exactly what I did. Cleveland wanted to trade up for a quarterback. They did not take one in the first round. So I got an offer from Cleveland to move down only 3 spots from 60. They wanted to move up from 67 to 64 to go get Jackson Dart, who was still on the board from Ole Miss. Not sure how realistic that's going to be, but in this scenario, that's what played out. Maybe in real life it could be for a Jalen Milroe, but I think this could be likely a day 2 trade down, whether it's for a quarterback or not. So we moved down from 64 to 67 in round 3. We got an extra 4th-round pick back in 2026. So that 4th rounder I gave in next year's draft to Minnesota, I got a 4th round back from Cleveland. So move down from 64 to 67, get a future 4th round pick, get that 4th back we just traded away, and the player that I wanted was still there anyway. Again, this is predictive, not who I would take, who I think the Eagles would take. I wanted this player for the Eagles because I think they're going to really like him. It's Georgia right guard Dylan Fairchild, right? I mean, this just makes all the sense in the world. He's a versatile offensive lineman from the University of Georgia. Like, that prospect is made in a lab to be a Philadelphia Eagle. And I like Tate Ratledge better than Fairchild. I think he's the better interior lineman from Georgia, but I think Ratledge will be more of a early 2nd round pick. I could even see him being like a dark horse. If we're talking about a first rounder, every year there's a guy in the first round you didn't expect to go. I could see Tate Rutledge, a team talking themselves into taking him in that 25 to 32 range. So I think he'll be out of reach here, but Dylan Fairchild, I think, is a solid plan B. Like, he's a good consolation prize if you want one of those solid Georgia linemen that are versatile inside, can play outside. Fairchild, I think, projects more as a guard at the next level. Long term, I think he'll be, like, I don't think if you draft him, it's with the idea of what you did with Cam Jurgens, where he'll play right guard for now, learn next to Lane Johnson, and then eventually slide over to right tackle. I think you make this pick if you don't believe in Tyler Steen's ceiling, if you don't believe Kenyon Green can get to a certain floor. If you want a long-term starter at right guard next to Cam Jurgens, I think that's where you pick Fairchild. If not, I would go with, like, there was an Emory Jones on the board here from LSU. That's a tackle guard tweener that I think fits at tackle more long-term than guard. But Fairchild, I think he checks that box. I don't believe the Eagles believe in Tyler Steen or Kenyon Green as the answer. I think they have hope for both of them, but I don't think either one's going to be their plan A. I think they would, in an ideal world, like those guys to be your top-tier backups, which is a really good, then you have really good depth. If Tyler Steen and Kenyon Green are two of your top backups, like, that's a lot of talent on your bench on the offensive line. I think that's what they would prefer. And I think Fairchild would come in right away and be the starter in this scenario. So we moved down from the last pick in the second round at 64. We moved down to 67. We got a fourth back after trading one in 2026 to Minnesota. Got that back. Took a player from Georgia, a versatile lineman for Jeff Stoutland. Makes all the sense in the world. This is a meat and potatoes draft. We got a defensive tackle. We got a guard. We're going for the guts of this team. We're going for the trenches, the inside of both lines. That's the theme so far in this predictive mock. Why it's likely, again, Howie Roseman moves up on day 2 just as much as day 1, if not more. He traded up or down in the second round in back-to-back years the last 2 seasons, trading down, then taking Tyler Steen, trading up, then taking Cooper Kupp. Drafting Georgia Bulldogs is a no-brainer for this team, especially versatile offensive linemen in their current situation at right guard, at tackle. I think this pick makes all the sense in the world. And then we continued our trading. 3 trades for Howie Roseman on day 1, day 2, and now day 3. So we traded up in the first round, traded down from the second round to the third, collected an extra 4th in 2026. Now, I'm actually going to use that 4th round pick in 2026. So I gave away a 4th, got one back. Now I'm going to trade it away again because I saw, to me, the last tight end in that second tier that's worth selecting as a potential Dallas Goedert replacement. I saw him as the only guy left on the board early in the 4th round. So I moved up. I traded the 134th overall pick in the 4th round. I traded the 4th in 2026. I got the 108th selection from the Las Vegas Raiders, and I got a 6th round pick back next year, and it's for Oregon tight end Terrence Ferguson. Again, Ferguson, I think, is below, in my estimation right now, it goes Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland. I would then say Mason Taylor, Elijah Arroyo, Harold Fannin, Gunnar Helm. Right? Those are the top 6 tight ends, in my opinion. And then I think it's Terrence Ferguson. Ferguson's that 7th guy. After him, you got like Gadsden from Syracuse, who I like, but I think there's a clear drop-off after Ferguson. Ferguson's that last guy that if you want an immediate impact player at tight end this year, if Dallas Goedert's not going to be here. Like, if he is, yeah, you can wait a little bit longer at tight end. You could even afford to wait next year. Maybe you make a trade for a veteran, like a young veteran, like a Michael Mayer or a Luke Musgrave from Green Bay. But if you need a guy right away to be the long-term Dallas Goedert replacement, Ferguson's the last guy that I personally would feel, I would say, comfortable with walking in right away from day 1 and being that starting tight end. Like, if you draft Gadsden from Syracuse or Lacey from Iowa, maybe they can eventually be that starter. I don't want to bank on that as a rookie. Terrence Ferguson, I believe, can be that starter from day 1. And I think he's a kind of player that the Eagles would really like. The Eagles need a tight end from this class, like even if they keep Dallas Goedert for a year. And like I said, after Ferguson, there's a drop-off. He's a really good athlete in space. Dallas Goedert, what is something he does best? Run after the catch. Make plays over the middle of the field. The screen game. be a physical runner on offense, I think that's who Terrence Ferguson is. He's, outside of Harold Fannin, I think the second best run after the catch tight end in this class. He led all tight ends, actually, in yards after the catch last year per reception at 9.0, at 9 yards flat. So for me, Terrence Ferguson's a guy that makes a lot of sense to replace Goddard. He led all tight ends as well at the combine in the 40-yard dash, running a 4.63. He's got soft hands. He's not a basket catcher by any means. I think Terrence Ferguson would be a really smart pick. Trading up in the 4th round makes all the sense in the world. So those are the main 3 picks of this draft. Very 2018, like I only ended up with 5 selections. I'll tell you my final 2 coming up next. But the top 3 picks, Walter Nolen from Ole Miss, defensive tackle, Dylan Fairchild from Georgia, a right guard, Terrence Ferguson, the Oregon tight end. Again, a predictive mock draft. Those are the 3 positions that I think are most likely that Howie takes. And he could shock us and go with a safety. He could surprise us and go with a corner again in one of the top 3 rounds for the 2nd year in a row. He could take a wide receiver. With Howie Roseman, you never know. He could, I don't know. He could take a linebacker. But I think the most likely scenarios are he trades up at one point and he trades down at one point in the first 3 rounds. He's going to go get a pass rusher, I think probably 2. He's going to get 2 linemen, whether it's on offense or defense, and I think he's going to take a tight end. So he could take 2 defensive linemen, he could take an offensive lineman and a defensive lineman. I think it's going to be 2 linemen, regardless of offense or defense, inside or out, and a tight end. I think that is the main idea, and who knows, the board's going to fall different ways that he can't prepare for, so things can change. You can't be set in your ways and say it has to play out this way. You got to be willing to improvise. You got to be willing to adapt. But I think that's the most likely scenario. And hey, I'd be happy with this. If the Eagles come away with Walter Nolen, with Dylan Fairchild, and Terrence Ferguson as their first 3 picks, and you collect some assets in the future, and you move up and be aggressive as well, I'm all for it. I'm all for those 3 picks, even if we're sacrificing quantity for quality. All right, guys, coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast, we'll recap this mock draft. Got 2 more picks for you on day 3, and I'm going to tell you something that you should really expect to see in this draft coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. All right, this Mock Draft Monday edition of Locked On Eagles is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between, for me, it's dining out, but also online shopping, entertainment. Look, I'm a spender. I'm a big-time spender, and it's easy to lose track of your cash. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete finance command center as well. You can track all your accounts and investments, spending in one place. You can just stop managing money and start building wealth as well. When I started using Monarch, I realized, again, just how much I was spending specifically on food delivery. Like when I'm working on my podcast, it's so convenient just to get food sent to my door. But now I budget smarter. I save more. I've been doing some more cooking at home thanks to Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. All right, we are wrapping up this Mock Draft Monday edition of Locked On Eagles, the first Mock Draft Monday of the month of April. Let's recap what we've done so far. Traded up in the first round from 32 to 24 to take Ole Miss defensive tackle Walter Nolen. Then traded down from the 64th overall pick in round 2 to the 67th overall pick in round 3, selecting Georgia guard Dylan Fairchild. Then we traded up. So we made a trade in the first round, in the second round to the third, now a trade up in the 4th, taking Oregon tight end Terrence Ferguson. I made 2 final picks in this draft in round 5. With the 161st overall selection, I selected a my guy for me, Ole Miss edge rusher Jared Ivey. So we took 2 pass rushers from Ole Miss. That defensive line was loaded. They had Jared Ivey, Walter Nolen, Princely Uman-Milan, J.J. Pagias. Like, Ole Miss is, I think, my favorite school in this year's class. Like, I like all 4 of those linemen. I would love to come away with just one of those guys. If I can get at least 2 of them, one early on in the draft, one later on, that would be great. And Jared Ivey, again, he has limitations as an explosive pass rusher. He is not that fast off the line of scrimmage, pretty stiff when it comes to his bend, overall flexibility and athleticism. But as a role player, I think he fills a niche role the Eagles could use for the edge rushing position. Like, they need size, they need length, they need power here. Without Josh Sweat and Brandon Graham, his power and run defense style, like, they're pretty undersized now on the edge. Like, Nolan Smith isn't the biggest edge rusher in the world. Jalix Hunt is not the biggest edge rusher in the world. Neither is Joshua Uche or Azeez Ojulari or even Bryce Huff. Like, this is a small unit. Patrick Johnson as well, who they brought back in free agency, spent a year with the Giants, but they brought him back. Like, those 5 players are not your more traditional hand in the dirt, like 4-3 defensive ends. Like, that's what we would call them back in the day. I kind of want to add a player like that to replace Josh Sweat, to replace the style of Brandon Graham. And I think Jared Ivey can be that guy. Like, again, he does not win a lot with speed. That quick first step is not there. His bend, don't expect him to do the ghost move that Josh Sweat could perfect, that Nolan Smith's been able to do. Like, he's not going to be moving to the quarterback with his hands in the grass still at full speed. He is not that guy, but he can win with a bull rush. He can win with power. He's extremely long. He has an elite wingspan for a pass rusher. I think he's good against the run, and he can improve his technique as a pass rusher, which can allow him to make up for some of those deficiencies from his athleticism. And I think he might work better as an inside pass rusher, like on third downs. I think this is a player you can use almost as a poor man's version of Charles Omenihu. So I like him a lot. And in a deep class, I think he'll end up falling more towards, I saw mock drafts that had him like as a third round pick. I think he's closer to a late 4th rounder, early 5th in this year's class. Last year, he's probably an earlier selection, but I think you could get him around this pick, which is 161 in round 5. And then one final pick in round 5. I want to add some more speed to the wide receiver position. I wanted to add a niche role next to Jahan Dotson as that 3A, 3B. Bring in a run after the catch specialist, some explosiveness at receiver. It's UNLV wide receiver Ricky White. This guy is undersized. Like, he is not going to win against press coverage. I think he'll exclusively be a player in the slot, in bunch sets, like reduced splits. He's not a guy that's going to play the X, but he's a good special teamer, not just as a returner, but a gunner. Like, he's a physical player despite his size, and he's a weapon over the middle of the field as a run after the catch guy. He's a weapon down the sidelines. Like, he is one of the faster players in this class. If he's available in round 5 or just somebody like this, I know it didn't work out and people roll their eyes when they hear Quez Watkins' name now, but for a late 6th round pick, like, Quez Watkins was, I think, a good draft pick. I think he exceeded expectations compared to what they thought he would be coming out of Southern Miss. They took him as a late day 3 selection. Everybody's like, he's probably not even going to make the team. And yeah, we remember the Super Bowl drop and how he didn't end up being a good player to complement Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. But for who he was, that's fine. And I would like to add that kind of niche player again in this draft. And I think Ricky White's one of those top options, I would say, on day 3. If you want to kind of add a burner to this receiver group. And even if they don't go with one early, which they probably won't, they should add some depth. Like, behind Smith, Brown, and Dotson, all you've got right now is Johnny Wilson. And I was a Johnny Wilson guy last year. You know that. And I'm hoping he can get better, especially with his hands in year 2. Like, he needs to catch the ball this year. Had some issues with drops last year, including the Super Bowl. But I think they should definitely add some competition and add a different style of player. Next to Johnny Wilson's the size. He's a good blocker. Now add the speed, the more gadget type of player. I like that in Ricky White. So there's our predictive mock draft. Walter Nolen, Dylan Fairchild, Terrence Ferguson, Jared Ivey, and Ricky White. Only 5 selections in this draft. Obviously, you want more chances at bat to hit on these prospects. Having a lot of draft picks is a good idea. But considering the Eagles have a pretty complete roster, considering they have a lot of draft picks in the future, they're a very young football team right now, I think they should really prioritize quality this year in the draft over quantity, especially in the trenches. Like, that's something you should expect from this draft, is that it's not going to be sexy. Like, if you're somebody that likes the flashiness, you like the sexy positions, receiver, taking tight ends and cornerbacks and safeties. The Eagles might take a couple of those guys, maybe one early on in this draft, probably more so later on day 3. If you're one of those guys, though, that hates when they take linemen, this like you had your fun last year, like I did with Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. You had your fun when they took Devontae Smith and, even at the time drafted Jalen Reagor, traded for A.J. Brown. This is going to be, folks, a meet. Like if I could predict one thing in an unpredictable world that is the NFL draft this year for Philadelphia and for the entire league, unlike last year, this is going to be a lineman-heavy draft. This is a meat and potatoes draft. I was even asked on Twitter, who, over-under 4 linemen drafted by the Eagles in this draft. Who are they taking in this class? I think the majority are going to be linemen. I would take the over on that. If I get to say right now, over-under 3.5 linemen the Eagles draft this year on day 1, day 2, and day 3, I'll take the over. I think I might take the over on 4, 4.5. I might take at 5. Maybe not. That might be aggressive. I think they're going to take 4 linemen this year. I would take the over on 3.5. I think you can guarantee 2 of the first 3 picks are going to be a lineman, whether it's a defensive tackle and an edge, or it's an offensive lineman and an edge, or an offensive lineman and a defensive tackle. Whatever of the 4 combinations, they're going to take 2 linemen in the first 3 rounds, and then I think they'll end up double dipping at one spot. They're going to take 1 offensive lineman at least, and I think they're going to take 2 pass rushers. A defensive tackle, maybe an edge, and then I could see them taking another edge later on, or another defensive tackle, because there's some really interesting names on day 3. Like I said, Jared Ivey. I think one of those Ohio State kids are going to be there. JT Tumalau or Jack Sawyer. There's Ja Joyner from Minnesota. I'm a really big fan of. I think he's a fascinating player. David Walker as well from Central Arkansas. There's a lot of linemen on day 3 that I'm seeing on mock drafts that I like. So, especially with how Howie Roseman just right now isn't letting players at other positions that he normally lets walk, he's paying those good players now. It's even more important than ever to have cost-effective, good linemen on both sides. It's more important now than ever because he's paying corners now eventually, or drafting them high. He's paying running backs. He's paying linebackers. So now that all of his assets, most of them are in the line, but now that all of them aren't invested in the trenches, getting production from young players in those spots, it's even more important for Philadelphia now than it's always been. So this is absolutely, without a doubt, going to be a meat and potatoes draft for Philadelphia. On Predictive Mock Draft Monday, that's one thing you can take to the bank. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Eagles. Thanks so much for tuning in and making us your first listen each and every day. Make sure you get to know all these prospects with the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. They're getting you ready for the draft Monday through Friday right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, thanks so much for downloading, watching, and listening, and let's go Birds. Fly, Eagles, fly.